Indeed. Good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra on this 30th day of October 2017. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. Now, the countdown to the October 26th election is over, but the countdown to the declaration of final results by IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati is now on. The clock is ticking to the Wednesday 1st November deadline by which the chairperson must announce the winner of last week's poll. Some feel, however, that the big announcement could actually be today. Only time will tell as we continue to monitor the situation at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center. In addition, NASA leader Raila Odinga has told his critics that he will not retire anytime soon, even as he calls for a fresh election in 90 days under a reformed IEBC. Now, he made those comments yesterday in Kawangware, even as he promised his supporters that he will make a big announcement this week on the way forward as or from his perspective. Meanwhile, an estimated 1,002,922 Standard 8 candidates will participate in KCPE rehearsals today, with a 3-day exam set to kick off from tomorrow up until Thursday. Now, we send our best wishes to all those candidates, even as they sit those crucial exams just days after a repeat election and protest plus clashes in some parts of the country. And finally, today on Citizen Extra, we ask you to rate the October 26th election. In your view, do you feel that IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati and his team have done a better job conducting this poll as compared to the August 8th one? What is your take? Let me ask that question one more time. We ask you to rate the October 26th poll in your view. Do you feel that IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati and his team have done a better job conducting this poll as compared to the August 8th one? What is your take? 22422 is our SMS line. And talk to us on our social media platforms. Use the hashtag CitizenExtra. And on Twitter, on Facebook, the handle is @CitizenTV Kenya. And we will be reading your feedback throughout the course of this 3-hour broadcast. Indeed, we are live in different parts of the country. In two of those places where I'll be talking to people, I'll be talking to two Sams. One, Sam Gituku at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center. He also has a panel there, and you know, they'll be looking at different issues affecting this poll, even as we wait that declaration by the chairperson Wafula Chebukati. Another Sam, that is Sam Ogina, is live in Kisumu County. We expect updates from him, even as Standard 8 candidates prepare for that rehearsal. And the residents of Kisumu County and 3 other counties await that declaration by the chairperson Wafula Chebukati on what will happen considering the election was called off in those 4 counties. We're also live as well in Nyeri County. Martin Munene will also be giving us an update. And of course, we'll be talking to you from different locations. We have different teams in different parts of this country. Well, let's immediately cross over to Nyeri County, where Martin Munene is on standby in the CBD, Nyeri town, I believe. And Martin is talking to residents there to find out what is their take on the October 26th election. What do they think was an improvement on the August 8th election? Where do you feel there is room for improvement as well? Martin, tell us the latest from the residents of Nyeri County.
A very good morning to you, Wahiga Mwaura from Nyeri County. A warm morning here in this county. And for example, you can look behind me if my cameraman can show you. Businesses are back, businesses are open. People are in the town. People have come out after they exercised their democratic right to vote. People actually came back and started working. And this morning, a lot of hope is actually being expressed by people here as they wait the announcement by the IEBC chair, and we're going to be talking to some of the residents here to find out what they think about what happened on 26th and what are some of the expectations before the announcement is made. Wahiga Mwaura, it's important that I say that in previous coverage of this area, a lot of people had complained that their businesses were suffering, their lives had been distracted because of the elections and the preparations elections that were ongoing, and so people really are hopeful that now the election is behind us, then they're going to see an improvement in their businesses and in their lives. And if you allow me, Wahiga Mwaura, just to talk to a few of them to just understand how they feel and what their take is on what happened on 26th, and some of the things that they think went okay or not, and also maybe tell us what are some of the expectations ahead of the announcement, maybe today or whatever it's going to be announced by the IEBC chair. So labda utueleze unaitwa nani, na utueleze uchaguzi uliona ni kama uliendelea vizuri ama ulikuwa mbaya kuliko ule wa tarehe 8, na labda pia utueleze matarajio yako kwenda mbele ni yapi.
Mimi naitwa Mbao, mimi nafanya kazi ya tax. Uchaguzi ulikuwa mzuri na tulichaguana na kampeni kaisha. Sasa tutarajia Uhuru apishwe tuanze kazi. Biashara iko chini kabisa. Na wale wanajua hapa hakuna furugu, waje waangalie waone tuko na kila makabila hapa. Tuko na Wajaruo, Wakamba, wanatutengenezea magari na usalama ni mingi sana Nyeri na hatuna ubaya.
Alright, labda mkazi mwingine utueleze unaitwa nani, na labda utueleze uchaguzi uliona ni kama uliendelea unavyofaa, na sasa kama mkazi wa Nyeri una matarajio gani kama baada ya uchaguzi huu?
Kusema kweli, kwa majina naitwa David Waidhanje Mureithi, na mimi nina uhakika ya kwamba uchaguzi uliendelezwa kwa njia inayofaa, na kusema kweli hata ukiangalia upande wa Mlima Kenya watu wote ni watulivu. Vile tungetaka ni kwamba sisi wa Kenya ni kitu kimoja, tuungane pamoja, tufanye kazi pamoja, kwa sababu ni uamuzi wa Wakenya ambao wameweza kumchagua Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, na kwa hivyo kwa sababu biashara zimeathirika, tunaomba Wakenya watulie ili tuweze kuendeleza kazi zetu kama ilivyo kawaida. Tunaomba washikadau wote waje katika sehemu hii tuweze kuendelea kutoka sehemu zote za Kenya. Tunawakaribisha kwa sababu tuna imani ya kwamba nchi itaendelea vizuri na hakutakuwa na mivurushano ya kisiasa tena. Asante.
And maybe just to get another person speaking to us, kindly let me speak to this old man here. Let me hear what he has to say. Kindly tell us who you are and how has business been like, and what are some of the expectations that you are having in line with business.
My name is David Mwangi Gaido, and I'm working in the matatu industry, and normally actually we are very happy. Election was very perfect, and we want our president apishwe tuendelee, and we can see Kenya is going to be one of the best in the whole of Africa. Africa will become, many of them will be coming to see and to study in Kenya.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe the final comment, labda utueleze unaitwa nani, na uchaguzi uliona ni kama uliendelea, na labda utueleze kwa maoni yako kama Mkenya ni mahali labda uchaguzi labda ambao utakuja labda 2022 ama wakati wote, ni nini ungetaka kama mkazi wa Nyeri labda ibadilishwe ama ikuwe inafanywa tofauti?
Asante sana. Kwa majina naitwa John Wahome. Kwanza nishukuru wa Kenya wote pahali wako kwa vile walijitokea wakati wa tarehe 26, walionyesha nia yao na kuchagua Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Sasa uchaguzi umeisha, Uhuru tunangojea apishwe. Leo tunangojea IEBC tangaze Uhuru awe rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, kwa sababu ndiye amekalia kiti, hakuna sasa uchaguzi. Sisi tunataka Wakenya wote waanze kazi kwa vile tumeadhiriwa kiuchumi, kibiashara, kila kitu. Sisi tunataka Wakenya wote waje pamoja. Sasa wasahau uchaguzi, waanze kazi, na kile tunaomba. Sasa tunangojea maida, vijana wetu hana kazi. Kwa hivyo uchaguzi utakuja tarehe 2022. Sasa ni kufanya kazi. Tunataka Wajaruo waje waendelee kutudia gari, Wakamba waanze kuwa watu wa kusaidia kwa tile, na sisi Wakikuyu kwa sababu tunajulikana kwa biashara kila pahali nchi yote. Tutaendelea kufanya hiyo kazi, na sisi tunataka kushikilia serikali. Kile tunaomba, tunangojea industry sianze hapa Nyeri, tuanze kupata industry zile siko, na vile mpaka ya serikali iende mabarabara, na kila nchi tunataka amani, tukae kwa amani na tushikilie uhuru. Sasa hakuna opposition ati kusema hakuna uchaguzi. Uliisha, sasa ni Kenya moja. Asante sana.
Maybe a young man here is complaining, he wants to talk. Please, tafadhali nataka unieleze ni nini uliona labda inafaa kubadilishwa vile ulipiga kura tarehe 8, na labda kura ambazo zitapigwa baadaye, ni nini unafikiria labda inafaa ibadilishwe ikuwe labda afadhali ama ni nini?
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Anthony Mwangi. Mimi nafanya kazi ya hoteli hapa 619. Ile kitu nasema hakuna kubadilishwa, iko hapo. Sisi tulienda tukachaguana, mambo ikaisha. Sasa vile nimeona, hata nimesikia kwa magazeti, nimeona kwa news ati kunasemekana kuna mpangilio mwingine iko, hakuna mpangilio mwingine iko. Ile uchaguzi tunangojea ni ya 2022. Sisi tulichagua Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na hakuna kitu kingine tunataka. Walisema tunaenda kuapisha mtu mwingine, hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Sisi tunaapisha Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
Asante. Wahiga Mwaura, that is how things are in Nyeri County. People are back to work. Businesses are back to actually back open. But still people feeling that things have not changed much, but they're actually expressing a lot of optimism that their businesses are going to improve as a consequence of what they project to be Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. And in Nyeri County, I must also say it's peaceful. We've not seen any conflicts whatsoever, and people saying here it's important that people come from across the country so that they can join together and join hands so that they can be able to build not only the economy of this region but also the economy of the entire country. Back to you in studio, Wahiga Mwaura, and that's how things are in Nyeri County. I am Martin Munene.
Thank you, Martin Munene, for giving us an update from Nyeri County on this Monday morning. Just about 4 days since that October 26 poll. Thank you for that update. We now cross over to Kisumu County, where Sam Ogina is ready to give us an update. Now, Kisumu residents, on one hand, of course, we know that IBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati called off the election in that particular county, one of 4 counties where that happened. But on the other hand, in the IBC portal, we also saw instances where certain constituencies within Kisumu County were mentioned as having voted in one way or the other, which led to some form of confusion. So let me get an update now from Sam Ogina. What are Kisumu residents saying, even as everyone awaits that final declaration by the chairperson Wafula Chebukati? What are their hopes, dreams? Of course, they are also waiting for an announcement by NASA leader Raila Odinga. What is the state of Kisumu County this morning, Sam?
Well, Wahiga, really, as you said, residents here waiting for 2 big announcements that will shape the fate of this particular county. And those announcements actually Wafula Chebukati, the IEBC chairman, whether elections will be conducted here, and if so, when will the elections be conducted here, the repeat elections. Of course, from Saturday, after the announcement that it had been postponed, normalcy returned here in Kisumu County, people going on with their businesses opening, and normalcy really returning in full capacity. But of course, if that announcement happens, then it will actually shape the sort of events that will unfold here in Kisumu County. Another big announcement that Kisumu residents await is that by the NASA leadership, that is Raila Odinga, on the next course of action. Of course, this is something that residents here take very seriously, really as a command. If they are told to move right, they will be doing so, and if they are told to move left, that is precisely what they will be doing. And as such, they await direction from their party leader, that is Raila Odinga. Of course, speaking to the Associated Press yesterday, Odinga alluded to the continuation of civil disobedience. What that means really is something that it might be something that he will describe in detail what he means by civil disobedience. But what we understand by civil disobedience in a layman's language should be mass protest. And if it is mass protest, then we know how it unfolds here in Kisumu: barricading of roads, burning of tires, engaging police in running battles. But right now, of course, after that postponement of the repeat elections, the security detail that had been deployed here to secure that process was withdrawn by Sunday, and now it means that the security detail that remains here is really those individuals who've been manning Kisumu even before the election cycle. Of course, apart from the big 2 announcement, maybe the area of concern should be down in Muhoroni, where there's tension after one person was killed yesterday, given the community rivalry between the 2 communities that reside in that particular belt. That is a border between Kisumu and Kericho counties. Of course, the leadership from these 2 counties have been engaging in peace caravans, but that did not yield much, given that the killing that happened yesterday actually happened just after the leadership of those 2 counties conducted peace caravans, as it were. And then something else that you mentioned is voting that occurred in Muhoroni. Well, remember that Muhoroni is a border town it borders Nandi, it borders Kericho, and that is why there was confusion that how comes there are people who voted from that particular area. Of course, this is an area where it borders the Luos, the Kalenjins, and the Nandis, and that is why we were able to see that a few votes were cast in that particular area, as it was. So essentially, the pulse of this county will be determined by those two announcements by IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and subsequently by the NASA presidential candidate, that is Raila Odinga. If those two big announcements are made, then of course it will shape the events and even the fate of this particular county. Waihiga.
Sam Ogina for that update. Of course, for more, we will be coming back to you to talk to you, even as we know that KCPE rehearsals begin today, and we'll come back to get an update on how the preparations are in that county. We're also monitoring the situation at the Githurai Primary School, where Education and Acting Interior CS Fred Matiang'i is expected any minute now there at that particular location to assess today's rehearsal for the 2017 KCPE exams. We can already see PS Dr. Richard Kipsang Belio. We can also see the Kenya National Examination Council Chairperson, Professor George Magoha, among others. So I believe any minute now, CS Matiang'i, TSC CEO also is there. So we can see that any minute now, just by their body language, CS Matiang'i should be making his way there to assess today's rehearsal for the 2017 KCPE exams, which kick off tomorrow up until Thursday. At that point, we also expect CS Matiang'i to give updates on what will happen in counties where possibly protests or clashes took place, and how they will mitigate any challenges that were experienced. Of course, we had that, for example, in Kibra, a school was affected by vandals of some sort, and in other counties, especially in the 4 counties where a lot of protests took place, we expect the CS to talk about security and what situations, what sort of measures they have taken in place to ensure that candidates are not affected by the prevailing political climate. Well, let me introduce my guest in studio. I'm glad to have, starting from my far right, Herman Manyora, political analyst. Welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you.
And next to him, Philip Kisia, former Nairobi town clerk. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
I want to pose a question to both of you, and Herman, I could start with you. Your assessment of the October 26th poll compared to the August 8th poll, what did you like about what we saw on Thursday? What did you not like?
I think for both the earlier one and this one of 26th, we must commend Kenyans for conducting the elections peacefully. We come out of them one people. There were prophets of doom who thought this election of 26th would see Kenya burn. It hasn't burned. We are still there struggling with a few challenges. But generally what I would say is that, well, Uhuru has won the election before even is declared. But the most disturbing thing is why there seems to be an attempt to play around with the figures. That is the most noticeable.
You see an attempt to play around with the figures. Yeah, can you give us specifics?
I think any reasonable person will tell you that. If you look at the communication from the chair of IEBC, if you look at the figures that are being bandied around, if you look at what people were treated to on 18th, on 26th.
On 26th.
When, like, for example, you saw Jubilee stalwarts within their areas where the MPs were agents, they went hoarse trying to explain why the turnout was low. Rain, Raila is not there, this is a repeat election, etc., etc. And some of the things we saw with our eyes, the polling stations were kind of empty. And then
you don't buy the argument.
You can't buy those figures. Nobody can buy them. By the way, I think nobody.
In your estimate, what is an honest, of all the figures you've had being bandied around, and Philip, I need to come to you, what to you was the figure that is closest to what you expected? We've had figures from as low as 3.5 million to 12 million, a wide range.
Being a Kenyan and being somebody who's very observant, I will really be surprised if the turnout was more than 4 million. I would be very surprised.
Philip?
Thank you, Wahiga. I think the question was whether there's been an improvement from August 8th compared to the elections that took place on 26th of this month. I can confidently say that there was an improvement. And one cardinal principle about management is continuous improvement. There is no way you can have a perfect situation. Otherwise, we'll be living out of this world.
What specific improvements did you see?
There are certain improvements, in my view, that I can talk about. One, at least we've not had anybody talking about transmission problems, that there were problems in transmitting results. The other one, Chebukati has taken a very keen interest in verifying results from 34A, B, and C. The other thing that I can talk about, delivery of materials, apart from very isolated cases where materials were not delivered because a few Kenyans were misled to stopping the materials from being delivered. And finally, we've also not heard of any major issues to do with the biometric equipment. I think these things functioned, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Chebukati and team for improving his performance.
They may have functioned, but nevertheless, many are concerned that those same KIMS kit seem to have given out different results. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, the chairperson stated that at least 4.4 million people were identified by the KIMS kit between 4 to 5 p.m. within just 1 hour. However, a smaller number of people, if we are to take the total number of people that voted at about 7.5 to 8 million, were identified by these same kits from 6 in the morning when polling stations opened up until 4 p.m. That doesn't seem to make sense to many Kenyans. How come voters seemingly avoided polling stations between 6 in the morning up until 4 and came, very sporadically, one by one? Then between 4 to 5, a whopping 4.4 million Kenyans suddenly dashed, to polling stations and voted and were identified by those KIMS kits. Doesn't seem to make sense, from the perspective of many Kenyans.
Well, it may not make sense to you, and I don't hold brief for Chebukati.
But it makes sense to you?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I'm saying it may not make sense to you.
Okay.
But the question you asked was very simple. Was there an improvement? We're not getting into the details of how many people voted between this time and how many. I think those are details that can be audited later. I mean, it's too early to start criticizing somebody. We don't know why there was a high turnover between probably 4 and 6, and why there's a low turnover between 6 and midday. So those are details that can be audited later.
So, but your simple answer is there was an improvement.
I can give you is that there was an improvement compared from August to October.
When you want to assess something special about elections, you look at the mischief that we've been trying to address along the journey we've been trying to improve our elections. One of the biggest problems we had were the so-called ghost voters. So we went electronic, and we wanted to identify people electronically so that unless you physically presented yourself, you could not vote. And now, how are we going to ensure this worked? We put measures. One would be that periodically, IBC will be able to know, and they will inform the public at maybe around 11 or noon, or
it's supposed to be every 3 hours.
Every 3 hours
or so.
You would inform the country how many people have voted at that particular time. Now, so that because the ghost workers always came at the very last hour when everybody has voted and left, then the people around will see who has not voted, and then they will cross the names and vote for them. So this was to guard against that. That means, therefore, Wahiga, it means, therefore, if that worked, and he's saying the kits worked, if that worked, then at the close of voting at 5 o'clock or thereabouts, the chairman of IBC would have been in a position to tell the country exactly how many people voted. Now, the rest of the details, verifying and what, that will come later.
He attempted to, though.
Telling Kenyans how many, I was in some studio somewhere, at 9:30, when he was given an estimate of, he said 48%. And I argued that the chairman should not be addressing the nation at 9:30, 3-4 hours after the close of polling, with an estimate. And now he turns around and says that estimate was based on the number of polling stations that had posted the results. It has never worked like that. So you can see an attempt to play around and massage the figures. This is what we are saying. It was obvious who was going to win this election the moment Raila withdrew.
In his attempt, he says that there was no mischief in the figures he was giving out. In fact, he says some of the numbers he gave were because of the data they had at that moment, and that data changed, as the evening wore on.
Even himself, he can't believe what he's saying. You can even see on his face, he can't believe it. The figures are not adding up. And in the fullness of time, in this digital age, the truth is going to be tabled by people who know these things. I think he's not even convincing himself. You know.
So you're okay. Philip, I'll come to you to get a response. But for now, we cross over to Hassan Mugambi, who is live in, is it Kakamega, I believe, to give us the latest there. Hassan, good morning. If you can give us a take on what is happening in Kakamega this morning. We want to assume that it's business as normal in that part of the country. We also know that rehearsals for 2017 KCPE exams are going on, even as residents there await the announcement by the chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, and also an announcement by NASA leader Raila Odinga on the way forward. What can you tell us from that county, Hassan?
Well, a very good morning to you, Wahiga, back in studio. Kakamega is waiting in as much anxiety as it is calm here. The residents here are waiting for the way forward as, expected from the national leader Raila Odinga later today. And also we saw a relative calm returning since Saturday. We have not had major incidents of road blockages and everything from the youth that as we were seeing last Friday and Thursday. But then again, we know that the area police commandant also saying that he will be moving very, very fast to combat any breach of peace in this particular place. But as you can see, it is very, very calm, and businesses have moved from the gloom that there was on Thursday to the boom that there is today, and everyone is moving back to normalcy here in Kakamega County. Also, the schools, as they are preparing for the KCPE that is set to start tomorrow, we know that the primary schools across this county and also the whole region, as I have been covering Vihiga, Kakamega and Bungoma counties, all the schools are underway. The preparations and rehearsals for KCPE is underway. And earlier on, I managed to speak to Moses Umbati, who is the regional police commander, saying that he will be working very closely with the education sector to ensure that all the institutions in which the examination will be conducted are going to be secured, and they will provide enough security for the exercise to be conducted. Remember, KCPE will be taking place tomorrow, the next day, and to finish on Thursday this week. That is the kind of situation, and we'll be getting to visit different schools here so that to get to know just how much are they ready and how much have they been affected with the political uncertainty that has been rocking the country over the past few months.
Hassan Mugambi reporting live from Kakamega County, just giving us an update on, of course, the different areas he's visited over the last couple of days, what has been happening in that part of the country, KCP rehearsals ongoing, and business as usual this morning from where he is. We carry on with our discussion in studio, even as we will shortly be crossing over to the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center. Some have called it the nerve center of this election, even as we await that final declaration by the chairperson, Wafula Chebukati. Should that happen today, Sam Gituko on standby, and he will be having a panel discussion on that end as well. Philip, I wanted to give you a chance now. Did you want to respond even as we carry on this discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment in view of what my good professor said, that you'll be shocked if there are only more than 4 million Kenyans who voted. You know, if you just look at the stronghold, Jubilee strongholds, I would be actually very shocked if Uhuru doesn't get 6.5 million votes and above, because the strongholds came out in big numbers and they did vote. Now, again, if you take into account that that other counties, although they didn't vote in big numbers, but there are those people who voted and voted for Uhuru. So I would be very, very shocked if the announcement came through Chebukati indicating anything less than 6.5 million voters for Uhuru.
You've raised an interesting point.
Yeah, now,
that, okay, go ahead, then I'll ask, go ahead.
Then the issue of percentages. You know, 100% of 0 is 0. So if by a certain time, X number of people had voted, if you work out the percentage, of course you'll get the number. So it was probably, you can't fault Chebukati for saying it was this percent at this particular time, and at this particular time to move to this percentage. Finally, again, Prof talked about some ghost voters coming at a particular time. I voted, and I'm sure he did vote. I'm not speaking on his behalf, but I think he voted, and I can see him nodding. The biometric, I don't want to know who you voted for, but you did vote. The biometric equipment identified me, Philip Kisa. It did not identify any other person. Had it identified a different person, then I would have said there could be a problem with the biometric equipment. But I was identified and I voted. So in my view, really, I would be very, very shocked if the announcement made today, tomorrow, or the day after was anything less than 6.5 million voters for Uhuru. In fact, I expect 7 million.
So there's a difference. Your predictions have a difference of about 2.5 million. Go ahead.
Kisia, if the biometric worked and we were not told there were places where this majorly didn't work, maybe an isolated 1 or 2 cases, there was no breakdown, we would have known. If the biometrics worked, and this is the point I'm making, then Kenyans would not have waited 4 days, 3 days to know how many Kenyans voted. It would have been a straightforward thing by close of business. If not even earlier, we would have known exactly with a precision of how many people voted and therefore the percentage turnout. Number 2, when Chebukati stands to tell us that voter turnout is 48%, it must only be in the manner we understand turnout. It can't be in another manner. In the manner in which we understand turnout to mean out of the 19.6 million, so many have voted, and on the basis of that, this is the percentage turnout. If you are doing it in another way, then you would also tell us, look here, this time I'm talking 48%, but now in a different way, to mean the percentage of those places that voted. He didn't say that. So, you know, you can walk backwards to your home. It's normal. It's physical. It's possible for me to walk backwards from this studio.
Is it?
But
it's
that's
normal. Okay. That's.
You get my point.
Yes.
The normal thing is I will have to walk facing forward.
Many read mischief. Sorry, I'm coming back to you, Philip. In what we see at different numbers.
Yes.
Could it be as a result of incompetence on the part of his team working and crunching the numbers? Could it be that at one point his team told him this, he quickly, jotted down what they gave him and went online and tweeted about it, then 3 hours later the team gives him a different figure? Could incompetence have a role in all this?
It's not a question of competence or mischief or anything else. It is as simple as pressing your finger and knowing how many people have voted. It's just as simple as that. And therefore, it's on the basis of this that people are saying there is some gerrymandering going on.
Philip.
Now, the last time we went into voting, that was in August 8th, people complained, and I don't know, the professor was one of them, but they complained about...
I never complained.
I don't know, they talked about, they told Kenyans figures don't matter. What is actually important are the processes. So forget about the figures, the processes. Are the process verifiable? Are they accurate? So I would want to imagine that Chebukati this time around was more careful. He wanted to do what the courts had said, what some few Kenyans had said, that forget about the numbers, it's about the process. So yes, he had the figures at a particular point in time, but he wanted to verify them, to confirm that these figures reflect the true numbers as the turnout would have been at that particular time. Again, I repeat, 100% of 0 is 0. So if at a certain point we had 0 and you work at the percentage, it's 0.
That's correct.
But if you had 10, you work at percentage, you get a different number.
These guys are elaborating a very small point.
It cannot
briefly,
be a small point.
I need to cross over to
Thomas. Professor, it cannot be a small point.
Verifying is okay.
Yeah, no, but
we are not asking, how do you verify turnout?
No.
Turnout is a turnout.
My friend, the last time we talked about, we had the numbers. In fact, our candidate had 1.5 million votes ahead of the other opponent.
Which is on August 8th.
Which again was disputed. And at that point, you remember, Professor, you said, forget about those numbers.
Let's look at the process.
Let's look at the process.
Let's verify. Let's ensure they are correct.
All the Kenyans were asking.
Now, I need to cross over to the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center. We will come back and carry on with this discussion, but Sam Gituku now is live from the National Tallying Center. Sam, kindly introduce your guests and tell us what we can expect to hear from you on that end and what is happening inside that auditorium just behind you at this moment.
Well, good morning, Wahiga. I am with some two able analysts. I have Jem Divo, a governance expert and also a former magistrate. Then I have Irungu Houghton, who is the executive director of Chapter 1, which is a civil rights organization group. And basically at the National Tallying Center, it's a waiting game because the commissioners have started making their way into the Bomas of Kenya, where they're supposed to be having a plenary meeting where they're going to discuss and decide on various matters. But just before we get into those matters, let's cross over to my colleague, Macharia Gashiru, who is inside the auditorium, the National Tallying Center, to tell us what he can see and really what to expect. Macharia, if you can hear me.
Very good morning to you, Sam. And indeed, we are at the auditorium. And just a few minutes ago, the IEBC Commissioner has announced the results from Fafi constituency, meaning so far we have the results from 266 constituencies. That is the constituencies that participated in the 26th polls, and therefore we're now waiting for the IEBC to give us the way forward in terms of whether the 25 constituencies that never participated will indeed participate in this election. But so far we have the results from the 266 constituencies, that is out of the 266 that participated in the polls. And looking at what's happening here, nothing much is happening compared to maybe yesterday or the last 2 days. IEBC commissioners are just here waiting for, or rather we're just waiting for them to give us the way forward. Just a few Jubilee Party agents who are here following what's happening, and therefore there is nothing much happening from this side, but we're just waiting for the IEBC to give us the way forward in terms of maybe when they will announce the results, or whether the 25 constituencies will be having the elections as had been promised earlier on. Some.
All right, thank you, Macharia. Macharia, they are telling us that all the results from all the constituencies that participated are in. And so now 25 constituencies remain, and most of them in the counties of Nyanza, talking about Kisumu, Siaya, Migori, and Homa Bay counties. So 25 did not participate in this election. And Joy, first of all, what options does IEBC have? Because they have until Wednesday to declare this election. They have 25 constituencies whose election has been postponed. What options do they have?
With the amount of time left, it would be very difficult to conduct elections in those areas and be able to count them. If I was in the position of the IEBC right now, I'd be looking into maybe just going ahead and making a declaration based on what I have, and then wait for whatever court process comes afterwards. Or I can even go to court and find an anticipatory suit and say, look, I have tried my best to do this and this is not working, and this is what I'm dealing with. Because at this point in time, the people of Kisumu have made themselves abundantly clear, and Migori, as well as Homa Bay, I think, they made themselves abundantly clear that this is not going to work. And you must remember that there are also people who are IBC staffers on the ground whose lives are also at risk if they insist on carrying on the exercise. So given the political, not even the political scenario, the mood in those areas, as IBC chair, I'd just be making a call as to all the aggregate votes combined, would they change the result? And if not, I just go ahead and make a call.
Irungu, earlier on you were telling me that one of the options for the IEBC is to go to the Supreme Court and seek for interpretation or advice on this. But even as they do that, is it really necessary, bearing in mind that the Elections Act allows them to continue to declare the election even without those locations participating?
I mean, I think the Electoral Commission has to be pragmatic and also guided by the law. So there are two options. I think from a pragmatic point of view, to try and force elections in the 25 constituencies would be ill-advised and, would be dangerous, I think. And I think Joy has mentioned why that would be the case. We also have to recognize that nationally we are in the examination season, and there are tens of thousands hundreds of thousands of children that will be affected by further protests, demonstrations, and possible violence. In terms of the Supreme Court, I think this has been probably one of the most litigious, elections that we've ever had in the history of the country. It would not hurt the Electoral Commission to go to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, and seek an advisory on whether there would be a legal challenge to them proceeding without holding the 25 constituency repeat elections.
But how tenable is that? You know that last week there was a quorum hitch. We just have about 2-3 days to the end of this season, to the end of the 7 days. How possible is it to go to the Supreme Court and get the advisory opinion?
Personally, I've not given up on the Supreme Court. I thought what happened last week was a travesty of justice. I was appalled, like many Kenyans, that citizens that had gone to the court requesting a legal opinion would essentially be blocked by what seemed to be very administratively frivolous arguments. But I think there was a lot of fear, and we cannot rule out the fact that the justices were threatened and therefore could not attend. But I would not give up on the Supreme Court at this point. After all, it is the highest court of the land, and therefore must continue to provide legal guidance, because once we give up that, we are basically in another space, not so far away from Bomas, the jungle.
Right. And Joy, 59 days ago, I was with you at the Supreme Court, just outside the Supreme Court, listening to the judgment, and with all its surprises or the lack of, it was ordered that an election is conducted within 60 days and in strict conformity to the law and the Constitution. It's now the 59th day. Do you think IEBC has complied with the orders?
In some aspects they have, which is, for example, why we are seeing such a delay in the release of results as compared to the August 8th election. They're taking their time to verify, they're taking the time to scrutinize, they're taking the time to ensure everything has come in. We have the hard copy, we have the soft copy. I think they're trying their best to do it. Whether everything has been complied with is something that will be better able to comment about it after the fact, because that's when you can audit what has come out. For example, the information we've been getting from the IBC so far has been so scanty that, in fact, some social media pundits are going as far as calling it incredible that you cannot rely on that information. To some extent, I agree, because we don't work in the IEBC, so we don't know what the truth and the lie is at this moment. But then once the information has come out, the 34C is there, we can scrutinize it. The party agents have been bringing in the information. There are people like ELOG, African Censored. There are quite a few groups that have also been doing parallel tallying. The media has been doing parallel tallying, so we'll be able to better audit the numbers. The process itself so far has been a bit, and that's why when the Chebukati went to the Supreme Court, Judge Philomena was very categorical in, okay, so exactly what don't you understand? Because the processes are supposed to have been already laid out, and it's a train that leaves the station and the rail doesn't go somewhere and start getting bumps or deviations. You're supposed to stick to that, to the train. So I think they have tried their best.
Right.
I think they have put their best foot forward. There are issues, of course, with some of the conduct now in places where it was disrupted or there was some violence. So there are places where it was outside their purview to stick to the law. But whereas, from my observation, as far as humanly possible, they have tried. But there are some places we will not know until after the process, when we can audit it more closely, because right now we simply don't have enough access to that information from this side of the declaration.
And Irungo, Joy is talking of the scanty information from IBC, also talking about the several sources that we have, especially on social media. I remember the former Prime Minister a few days ago indicated that the turnout was just slightly above 3 million. But now, from the IEBC chairman of Chebukati, we have a turnout of at least 7.5 million voters. What do you think is the problem? Because there seems to be a lot of sources of information and a lot of doubt, especially on social media.
I think the Electoral Commission has to bear primary responsibility for the confusion around the numbers.
Most definitely.
I think declaring estimates as opposed to actuals is a recipe for chaos, and we saw that in August 8th. So they should have remained within the actuals, and that's what I think the Kenyan people have asked, that we remain within figures that can be verified, rather than essentially figures that will be thrown out 5 or 6 hours later. The key area of concern, I think, for all of us is really the turnout, and this is now causing major concern. And if we're not careful, we'll drown out the work that's gone into these elections. Because I think what will continue to be a question was, we had a turnout declared initially, and then another one declared. And those on the NASA side are basically arguing that Jubilee is bumping up the numbers, and this is what happened during the Thursday-Friday processes. And of course, Jubilee is denying that this is the case. The problem has been, I think, essentially is that without the oversight of the independent institutions like the African Uncensored, and I think they've done a great job in terms of looking at this, and ELOG is another one, and of course Kureangu has been doing its own analysis. So there are several things that we can look at. The media, I think, also needs to call it at that level. But until we see the actual 34B forms and verify those, it will just continue to be a controversial conversation rather than something that brings an end to this uncertainty that we've had.
But do you think the problem is really the communication from the Commission, or is it a problem with us? Because I don't know whether you listened to the explanation by Chebukati yesterday.
Which explanation? There have been several.
The explanation why 48%, why 6.5 million voters, and why now we are at 7.5. Are we overly suspicious, or there is really a real challenge?
I mean, when a country begins to have a hashtag that says "I am not a militia" and that trends, there has to be something wrong. I mean, I don't know whether we should have started. In the old days, not very long ago, we would start conversations with "My name is Irungu and I love the Lord as my personal savior," or "Assalamu alaikum." But now we start with "My name is Irungu and I'm not a militia." The question is that we've really gone into a situation where deception, half-truth, fake news are essentially now fair game. I mean, we talk about Cambridge Analytica, and it seems like there is a lot of resources that's going into essentially polarizing this country, and we need to stop that. I think a place where investigative agencies could spend some time is looking at the conduct of Cambridge Analytica. But we have to recognize there's also a Kenya Analytica that is propelling through bots and algorithms all kinds of lies about what's happening in this country. And until we resolve that, I think the moral fiber, the political culture will always be prone to just essentially lies and deception.
Allow me also to just weigh in on that, or do you have to go?
We'll have to come back after a short break, because yes, we have to pay bills. This is the Bombers of Kenya. We'll be back shortly to continue discussing this with Irungu Houghton and Jem Divo, governance expert.